Self-install kits are loved by marketing, loved by higher management, loved by customers. It saves them money. And, time even if they don't have to wait for an appointment. However, the frontline people hate self-install kits. A line tech, for example, likes it when a job is installed professionally. The technician has to certify, even for a service call, he has to certify that line connected to the system for noise and signal and everything else, and report back, if there's a problem. With a self-install kit, you just don't get that kind of feedback. We don't get a certification of the line. The modem data can do a little bit of that. The modem is hooked up, and even sometimes with cable boxes nowadays, we do get a little data back. But, we don't know if that's the customer's loose connection or if there's a system problem. We really can't tell anything because no one's really been out there to make sure everything's tight. Connections are critical. Tightness. Connections have to be tight. If you don't hear anything else from this whole video, know that your connections have to be tight. Even the connection at the modem. So often, everything in the house can be tight, but the customer's played with the modem or exchanged the modem, put it back in and left it loose there. That can be a huge problem for a line tech to track down, because a lot of times the modems have routers built in and everything else. If the wire's loose to the back of the modem, all kinds of garbage gets into the cable system. Connections are critical. If you're going to do your own self-install kit, you just moved into a house, let's say, and you received a box in the mail, or you picked it up and it's got a few jumpers in it, and they're hoping that the house is pretty well wired from the last customer. Ideally they've checked and they won't let you do a self-install if the house hasn't had cable in a long time, but that's in a perfect world. Hopefully the house had cable and things are in good shape, but you have to look that over yourself. You have to run around, check the quality of connectors, splitters, the quality and the condition. This won't do. For this kind of push-on connector, this won't do for cable TV. It's trash. They're just trash. This connector here is one by the cable company, handed out in a self-install kit. And it's a much better connector. You can see just how it works. It's tightly threaded. Connections have to be snug as you can get them by hand. And outside, they really need an extra little bit with a wrench. You don't have to get carried away and make them super tight, but they should ideally be tight where they're hard to loosen again without a wrench, especially outside. Inside, it doesn't hurt to snug them a tiny bit. Don't get carried away, you can break some. Check the qualities of the cable and the grounding. The cable also, you have to walk outside and walk around inside. Make sure your connections everywhere there's a splice are tight. Make sure there's not extra splitters in the line that you don't need anymore. Everything has to be tight, secure, and make sense. The cable itself on the outside of the house, make sure the dog hasn't chewed it up, or the last person's dog hasn't chewed it up, or the squirrels or whatever. Inspect the line visually coming to the house and around the outside of the house and going into the house and through the basement. There should be a ground block, one of these guys on the outside of the house. It should not be on the inside of the house, it should be on the outside of the house. That's kind of important for fire safety. So chews, cracks, burns, or melts. Cable, if it's really cheap and really old, it can actually crack on the insulation. Anywhere moisture can get into that cable, it's done. It's going to just be a crunchy piece of junk at that point. Also, on the inside of the house, make sure that the cable is routed away from heavy draw appliances. We have a major problem with grow lights, the old metal halide type. I'm not talking to the microphone. For more detail on all of this, see my video, CATV from Pole to Home. It's a 20-minute video. I didn't want to go that long in this video. But you'll learn things in that video about configuration and setup. Why connecting here in the system after the first splitter gives you one level of signal, whereas out here on a high port of the other secondary splitter give you a different level, maybe 7 dB in this example. And where you hook your modem up depends on the levels you actually receive. You're transmitting and receiving at. This is more technical, and you can do this video to find out more about that. We'd like to receive at 0 and transmit at 46. Obviously, if your transmitting is a little low, then you'd be better off hooking up out here. If your transmit level is high, then you would want to be here. If your receive is low, then you'd want to be here. But you only need about 0 dB on the receive. Some of these DOCSIS modems don't like a lot of signal on the receive. Dry, clean, tight, and terminated. The last thing is, if you have a lot of outlets or splitters in the house, narrow the splitters down usually. If your signal's really high, sometimes you want a lot of splits. It's kind of you just have to look at your signal levels to know at that point. But generally you want to get rid of splitters. Use the smallest splitter you can. If you really have a port free on a splitter that you don't want to get rid of, or you've got a wall plate that you want to keep powered because you move it around a lot, then you need a terminator, 75 ohm terminator. Any unused port or any unused wall plate that's hooked to the system should be terminated snugly. Nice, wrench that in with the wrench, rolled briefly, quick snug. So if you walk over to the back of the house or wherever the cable comes in, you should see a ground block, and connection should be tight and dry here, of course, sealed from weather. This ground block should be on the outside of the house, not the inside of the house. The green ground wire that connects to the ground block can go into the inside, to find ground, but the block itself should be outside. Potentially, in a worst possible scenario with the power company, the cable could, up to the ground block, could all go into flames. I've seen it happen in a severe electrical mishap. So the cable from the ground block out needs to be routed out of the, not inside the house certainly, and away from anything extremely flammable. That's about it though. If you need more information, see my other video.